I was never prepared to be a father. I had no idea how hard it would be, or how heavy the responsibility would feel. You know, it doesn't seem right to have that much influence over one small life. The way they look up to you, and how easy it is to let them down. Maybe if my dad had been there, it would have been easier. But he wasn't. I grew up most of my life without a father. I can remember his face, but I can't remember a life with him. The last time I saw him, it was on a school day. He was always gone in the mornings, but for some reason he was able to drop me off that day. He even gave me a kiss. I will never forget that day.
So very powerful. And the young man in that story, John Finch, just 11 years old, is my guest. John, good to have you back on 100 Huntley Street.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
You go through your life, you know, without your father from 11 years on. How did that impact you? I mean, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but, you know, as you think back, how did that, I guess, negatively affect you?
I was very angry. You know, I was angry at God because he allowed my dad to commit suicide, and I was angry at my dad. You know, I referred to him many times as a coward. So I had this anger deep within that led me to eventually medicate it and cover it up with something, and my choice was alcohol.
So you write this book, and you also do a film. It's called The Father Effect. You can get the book from us, and you can go to our website, The Hope and Healing from a Dad's Absence. And you also did a film, which is the reason we have the book as well. People like John Elridge, a good friend of ours here at 100 Huntley Street, and others. You interviewed many, many people. Were there some things that you found common as you talked to different people about, you know, the effect that, you know, their lives had without having a dad around?
You know, anger is one of those things. It's amazing the number of men and women that I talked to, and as I began to share my story, that were angry for some reason. You know, they were just bitter and resentful. And so that seems to be a common thread. And if you look at all of our social issues, especially with men, whether it be prison inmate, you know, population, whether it be addiction, with women, you have teenage pregnancy, you have cutting, all of these things. You look at all of those issues, and most of them are a result of some type of father wound, some type of anger, if you will.
You know what, I was reading your book and then also watching the film, but especially reading the book, I was feeling like a lot of pressure in a good way, I think, because, you know, we talk about how important a dad is. I mean, you know, referred to some of the statistics that, you know, the runaway, the teenage pregnancy, prison, drug, all those kinds of things. A dad is so important.
He is, and most men I don't think understand that, and that's what we try to do with the book and the movie. Is it's encourage and inspire men to really walk in that daily awareness of their impact, in the tone that they use, the words that they use, how they love their wife. You know, is such a huge piece, that modeling piece in a young girl, understanding how she is supposed to be loved by watching how her dad loves her mom.
Well, I have 3 daughters, and you know, years ago I said to my wife, you know, kind of those, you know, those moments, you know, because I travel around the world, I'm in some of these dangerous countries, you know, reporting on the persecuted church, things like that. And I said to her, Arlene, I will die for you. And she looked at me and says, oh, I know that, but will you live for me? And it just, like, even when I talk about it now, it still brings tears to my eyes. And I've had that happen where my kids have said to me, because we're affectionate with each other, we love each other a lot, and we communicate that. And I know that my daughters see that. And I think as they've chosen men that have hopefully those same characteristics, how important is that, you know, you show love to your wife?
It's very, very vital. and even having those still committed times of date night so that your kids understand and know, man, mom and dad are making time for one another. They know that is the most important relationship, right? Several of the interviews we did, when we talked to counselors, I asked him, what is the most important thing a father can do for a child? Without hesitation, they would say, love their mother.
Plus, it keeps the home safe, too.
There is stability and security in that. You know, what I try to do every day is come down and before breakfast, I try to love and hug on my wife in front of my kids. Try to be intentional and purposeful in that, because that gives them stability and security walking out that front door to go to school that day going, wow, you know what? Mom and dad love one another.
So that's the practical point number one. How important in the spiritual side of things, praying with your kids?
Praying with your kids, for me, has become such an intimate process. One of the people we interviewed for the film, Neil Jeffrey, former NFL and All-American quarterback, he did this great piece about how his dad was a prayer warrior. And he said, looked at me at one point, and he said, John, there's nothing like a child hear his father pray for him or her in that fatherly, manly voice out loud. Because what that does is that allows that child to know, man, dad loves me. He's very interested in what I'm dealing with, and he's taking my name to the Father on my behalf. And it also allows you to have additional conversations. When that child says, man, I need you to pray for me about this test tomorrow. Well, then you have a conversation afterwards and go, you know what? What about this test tomorrow can I help you with? The other thing I love doing is praying for my wife in front of my kids.
Yeah. Well, I know we've done that. We do a lot of that in our home. And I actually had one of my daughter's youngest daughter, Amelia, come over to me one day and just hugged me and said, Daddy, thank you for showing me God. And I thought, you know what? That's better than any awards or anything that you can do. You know, it just absolutely transforms and changes your life. Now, in the U.S., it's about 1 in 3, I think, that there's homes without a father, and it's probably similar stats, you know, percentage-wise in Canada. What can we do as dads beyond our own kids? Can we be somewhat of a father figure to those in our churches, in our communities?
Absolutely. It's about walking in that awareness of those outside our home. You know, our neighbors' kids that are being raised by a single mom, that type of thing. I remember part of my issue, I think, too, and part of my anger also stemmed from that. I didn't have that man that I thought or believed step in that gap, and that was really stepped up to say, hey, man, let me father you. Let me, you know, not those words verbally, but really step in the gap there and walk with me for many years.
I mean, we live in such a broken culture. Is this an opportunity, though, for guys like you and I and others, you know, to step into some of the gaps and maybe in some way show of what a father figure might look like? And again, we're broken guys. Absolutely. We'll be the first to admit that. Absolutely. But we have the Lord with us, and we have learned a few things along the way. Can we make that model or be that model and maybe direct people even towards our Heavenly Father, who is a perfect Father? Absolutely.
And part of that, I think the important piece is really forming this band of brothers, if you will. Again, talking with other guys that have been there. The older guys especially. I love sitting and talking with older men, hearing their stories, getting wisdom and advice from them. And so being able to have that community and share the mistakes, all the screw-ups, but yet all the advice and counsel too, man, there's nothing better than that.
Well, thank you very much, John. And again, this is an important book, and I'm going to get this into my son's hands. He just recently became a father, so now I'm a grandfather. And I was thinking, you know, it is a daunting task to be a father. And for you guys that have, you know, really stood up and said, yeah, I will serve the Lord by showing, you know, who Jesus is, loving my wife, loving my kids. It's so important. So I'm going to get this to my son, Matt, and he's going to teach my grandson, Hank, about God and, you know, the father effect. It is so important. It can't be understated or overstated, because we need to understand the father effect and what it is if a dad is not in the home. John, thank you very much.
Thank you
for your work in ministry, and you know, keep on being a good dad.
I'll try.
All right, and we'll be back with more of 100 Huntley Street right after this.